Good to go?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Pappas. I am 16 years old and this is my transition speech. So I was born in Concord, New Hampshire, and
Sorry about that. It can be kind of wonky.
it's finicky.
Yeah.
And I moved around for the first 6 years of my life between Maine and Vermont, and I lived in Ellsworth for a while before I finally came back here and settled down in Maine, and I've been here ever since. Growing up, I was really immersed in English because both of my parents are English majors. My mom was an English teacher for 8 years before she got her bachelor's degree in library science, and she's been a head librarian at the high school and a library media specialist for 10 years. My dad majored in French and journalism, and he minored in English, and he's been a journalist for 26 years now. He's the editor at the Times-Argus in Vermont. So growing up with them as parents has meant a lot of English pressure has been put on me. I get my text proofread occasionally. I know the exact purpose of the Oxford comma and exactly when to use a semicolon, which is really important, guys. So for a long time, because of growing up with them, I dreamt of being a writer or a journalist. I actually was part of a newspaper in my middle school. I created it myself, the Mustang Star. I wrote short stories and editorials and informational articles, and I worked really hard on it, and that passion continued up until high school. Up until about last year, I co-edited the Trojan Tribune newspaper. So writing has always been really important to me. I idolized authors. I wanted to be just like J.K. Rowling. I wanted to be like Shakespeare. I've read Macbeth at least 3 times since sophomore year. But I'm not really good at writing. So much to my chagrin, I decided I would just tuck that aside and keep it as a hobby. So moving on, like later in like changing career paths, because I knew that if I couldn't be a writer, I needed to be something. So I was really interested in art. I'm pretty creative. I like doing things and creating things and using my mind to like come up with new examples of different parts of culture. So I was really interested in art, and I loved art class. I loved creating things. I liked showing people how I felt and what I saw, and it felt really powerful. And for a long time, I wanted to be an illustrator. It was great because I could like be a part of creating the story without actually having to like put my writing out there, which was great. So I would doodle comics in my notebooks, and I would draw paper airplanes on desks, and I would sketch flowers on my hands. But then, much like writing, I realized that drawing as a professional thing probably was not the best option for me. I'm not the best at it. So
I'm sorry. I don't
Fine.
know why it's doing that.
That led me to history, because I love history. I grew up watching things like Titanic and Night at the Museum and National Treasure, and I wanted to be a treasure hunter for so long. But then I started watching things like Rick Steves Europe, which I own on box set, and I've watched at least 4 times. So it really was so captivating to see how cultures can change and how different things are different over time, and yet we can still revisit it. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a part of that adventure. So I decided that because I couldn't be a treasure hunter, that's not exactly like the most solid career plan, I wanted to be a historian. So history, like English and art, as I already said, really had my attention since I was so little and everyone was working during the summer because I was like 6. I would go down to the Soamesville Museum and Gardens in Soamesville and docent with my grandparents. I did this almost every summer leading up to high school. I would sit there and I would tally all the visitors who came in, and I would tidy up the exhibits, and I was really involved in museum culture. So the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, the director of the MDI Historical Society, Tim Garrity, actually contacted me to see if I would consider being a full-time docent at the museum, considering my past experience there. I said yes. It was the best summer I have ever worked. I got to talk to different people, create new exhibits. I got to completely run the museum on my own as a 14-year-old kid, which was a big deal, and I loved it. I could not get enough. And that's when, later in the spring, Tim Garrity emailed me again, and he wanted to see if I wanted to do an internship and actually work hand in hand with him in order to create a new product. So that summer and spring, I worked with him, and we worked on a magazine article tallying up all the immigrants who came to the island over a course of time. I was literally digging through archives and looking over census records, and it was so exciting for me. Like, there was dust flying everywhere, and it was great, and I could not get enough of it. Those experiences were the most rewarding and the most fun for me, and I carry them with me even now. And even though I can't go into super tons of detail about it because it was a really long time, I actually went to Europe, and that was great because I spent the entire time asking if we could go into all the fine art museums, if we could stay just 5 more minutes, Mom, at this one place, and I asked so many questions. I'm sure all the tour guides must have hated me. I was that one kid. But I was so happy there, and I just wanted to go back. And that experience has also stayed with me for a really long time. That's me at the Eiffel Tower and all that good stuff. This would stop kicking me off. Oh, okay, it's not even showing up on the thing anymore. Please work. There we go. Okay, so this was in the summer of my 7th grade year. I was still docenting at the museum, not getting paid to do it, of course. But I came back that summer with a whole new experience and a whole new vision of what I actually wanted to do. I wanted to be back in that time. I wanted to be able to stand in castles and tell people about what history was. So, that leads me, if it would stop kicking me off, to what does it actually mean to be a historian? And I asked the great dictionary, and Merriam-Webster defines it as a student or writer of history, especially one who produces a scholarly synthesis, or a writer or a compiler of a chronicle. I think of it more as time pirates and treasure hunters and national treasure, and it's really exciting for me, but it might not be for everyone. So the term historian is actually a big umbrella. It's a pretty broad term. There's tons of different subcategories that go into it. There's archaeology, which is the study of remains of a culture; anthropology, the study of human beings; art history, the study of art and how it has shaped and changed cultures throughout history; museology, which is actually the study of museums; economics, the study of production, consumption, and distribution of wealth; philosophy, the study of the fundamental knowledge in existence. There are so many different subcategories here, and I want to do them all, and I can't do that all. And it's complicated. And I was talking to Mr. Lawson, my honors U.S. history teacher, and he said, that's not actually a bad thing. He told me that history is something you need to love in its entirety. You can't just love the one part, because then you're missing an entire piece of the puzzle. That would be like focusing on this one pixel right here instead of looking at the bigger picture, which is really important. When I asked him if he could give me some advice for people who want to go into history, especially me, because it's a complicated field. You can either go into history and get a degree and you can come out and you can immediately go on to curate a museum, or you can not and you can kind of flounder a bit. He told me the best way to understand history is to actually make history, or at least be a part of it. Travel the world, meet people, read snarky British literature from the 1400s, and never stop learning. Tell other people's stories, relate them to your own, then go around and tell your story to other people. Emphasize your mistakes you made at each moment. History is about mistakes and stupid people, and we need more people to learn from history and do the right thing. And I plan to do that. So, where do I go from here? And that's a big question, because college has always been a really tricky thing for me to narrow down. I've always dreamed of going to some big, fancy, expensive college, but as I've gotten older, I realize that's completely out of the ballpark for me. That is not my thing at all. So I'm looking at UMO, the University of Maine and Orono, as a safety school. It has an awesome history department, it's not very expensive, it has great financial aid, and it's close to home, which is really nice because I can come home, I can visit on the weekends, and I can still keep a job if I need to, which is great. And then I'm also looking at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, as a stretch school. It has an amazing history department. It's insanely expensive, insanely selective, and it's very, very far away, but it's in Canada, so it all kind of balances out. Also, they have alumni such as Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, and William Shatner, so like Star Trek and the Prime Minister. Can't go wrong there.
I am so sorry, Ella.
It's fine.
When was the last time you restarted your laptop?
Last night.
Last night?
Yeah.
So the other option is restarting the Apple TV.
I think it might be the heat.
It's fine.
The projector's probably really hot.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because we could also just directly plug you in, but
It's fine.
we'd have to move the podium.
I'm running it. It's okay.
Okay. You're actually making it a part of your presentation, which is very professional.
Thank you. So that's all great and good. It's a really big dream. Like Andrew said, it's a pie in the sky dream. So I'm looking at things more realistically, and I'm actually looking at Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts as my first choice college. It has an amazing history department. It's a very small campus. It's closer to home than Montreal, which is really great for everyone in my family. I have lots of family in Massachusetts too, so I have a place to go home. It has manageable finances. They actually cover all financial aid. It's a really small campus, which is great for me. I don't really like tons of people. It's a liberal arts college, and it's completely perfect. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to go there. I want to major in history and minor in philosophy, because you can never stop expanding the world you know. And I want to tell my story and then tell others. Thank you for watching.
Questions for Ella?
Brandon.
Okay, so you said you went to Europe and you saw a lot of cool stuff. What do you think was your favorite, like, history thing that you saw out of all that? Like, out of all the art museums, all that stuff.
History thing.
History
Well,
thing.
probably the Arc de Triomphe, because it actually has levels in it, and each level is a different museum, so that was pretty cool. It has 256 steps in it, just in case anyone's wondering. I counted.
What do you mean every level? Like, explain that.
There are staircases spiraling up like the actual legs of the building, and then once you hit like the flat, it goes like one level to another level, and then to another level, and then you're actually on the top. So each level is different like parts of the Arc de Triomphe, and it has different histories to it, and it's really interesting.
It's in relief, or there are paintings, there's galleries inside of it?
It's like pieces of the architecture that have like broken off or something that they like frame, and then it has like a timeline running through it, and it goes up all the stairs, and it's really cool.
Huh.
Yeah. Jacob.
I know you said that like you wanted to travel and stuff and learn a lot more by being more hands-on, but it's kind of the typical question. Are you afterwards planning on finding a job where you can kind of maintain a steady source of income, or is there money coming in when you're traveling? What's the plan with that?
I'm not actually sure. After college, I want to go to a graduate school so that I can like further myself more in my career, but I was thinking of doing a semester abroad at Paris. Like that was something that I was considering really heavily. I'm not really sure, honestly, career-wise, what I want to do. I just know I want to do something like that. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's it.
Do you think that the focus on like Western culture is like a coincidence because like that's what you've been shown and like you'd be interested in going into like more Eastern or other things, or like do you think your focus is mostly Western?
Well, that's also a complicated question. For a really long time, I was thinking I wanted to go strictly into art history, and so I was looking a lot at Paris because they have the Louvre there, and they have like all of these amazing, amazing art museums, and they have so much art history. And so I was thinking that would be a great place for me to go, but my focus has shifted a little more since then. I'm really interested in U.S. history right now. I am a huge fan of like politics right now too. I like arguing with people, and so I don't really know. I think that my going to Europe does have something to do with that because I actually witnessed it firsthand, but I don't think it's gonna stay like that. Yes.
What are some career options for people with history degree?
Well, you can go into working as a professional researcher in a college or a university or even a high school. You could become a teacher. You can curate museums. You have to go a little further in your education with that. Like I said, there's a lot of different options for like actual types of history that you could go into. Like you could become an anthropologist with a history degree, especially if you go to COA. That's easier to do. Yeah, there's a lot of different options for careers. There's the museology. What is the word? Program. That's it.
Right.
And that actually is the study and working of like actually curating and researching and archiving. So that's definitely something you can do if you want to go like directly into a museum curator position.
And don't film companies hire historians all the time?
Yes, fact checkers. Yeah, those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool dudes.
But they also have to do set design?
Set design. They have to make sure everything is historically accurate. So,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Ella.
that didn't boot me off at the end. It just kept going while I was actually doing my presentation.